Laura Brusca, Chief Communications Officer at Forbes, talks to host Doug Simon on PR's Top Pros Talk.
Laura, for context, can you just start by giving us sort of a quick look into what your full job responsibilities are?
I am Chief Communications Officer at Forbes, and I oversee both internal and external communications. And a big part of my focus is really on both promoting and protecting the brand. So that's everything from our stories, our editorial stories, our business stories, as well as our internal stories too. We do a lot of employee and internal communication. So it really runs across the board, both the external points and internal comms.
Yeah, and the mix of both promoting and protecting your brand has become more common across the communications landscape. What are some of the keys to protecting your brand that you see that maybe are specific to Forbes, but also really apply to many other brands?
That's a great question. And it's something that my team and I actually met on last week just to discuss again. We always start the year off with a strategy session where we look at the year ahead and we think about the strategy and our planning for the year ahead. We also look at the year that's passed and what happened that year and where we need to make pivots or shifts, which I think is really important. So I think really key to that protect and promote point is the prioritizing things and planning from the start of the year and really making sure you're on the same page with your team. A big part of what we do is really focusing on being proactive. So we really want to be less reactive in 2024 and more proactive this year. So much more in touch with reporters, building relationships, which, as we all know in the PR world, relationships are so key to that promote and protect, combination. And then, it's really being flexible. I think when, we start our days and we expect our day to be one way, and then it ends up being turned upside down and thrown around, and, you didn't get anything done that you said you were going to, and it ended up being focused elsewhere. But being flexible is really important, especially in today's world where there's social media conversations that drive new things and, things pop up in the world, and just being that flexible self and being aware of the world that we're in and how we operate is so critical. And finally, it's really just trust. So, for me, it's the trust of my team. It's the trust in our business. It's the trust in our people. Having a team behind you that you can trust is really, really important.
Yeah, now the world was very, very different in terms of consuming content when Forbes first really established its name. You've managed to navigate being successful, transitioning to be more than, say, just what the print edition was. How do you go about approaching those challenges?
As you said, like, we're a very well-established brand. We celebrated our 100th anniversary several years ago, and to I think the thing that the Forbes brand stands for and is success, and it's something that every person can relate to. We have 42 licensed editions of Forbes in 68 different countries around the world, and in every language. And this is something they always say, in every language, our brand stands for success. And I think that's what's really given us this global recognition and global appeal with so many different types of audiences.
So important to sort of have a guiding light for what you're about that you've defined so specifically. I mean, to be able to do it
Yeah.
in one word is really valuable. And does that tie in all across the different products, services, content that you're offering?
I definitely feel like that does tie across so much. So whether it's in our communities that we've built, our under 30 community, for example, or our 30-50 community, it's this feeling of achievement that people have. We're with you as in every bit of your journey to success, whether you're aspiring to be successful and on the cover someday of Forbes, or if you've reached that point in your life and you've achieved success. How do we help those people share their stories and their inspiration for others? I think it really does connect across the brands. And the other thing I was going to say is really, it's something we've been talking a lot about, is our cultural currency, which kind of keeps us relevant to today. And it's so amazing. This cultural currency, the fact that we're in movies, there's fake covers of, Forbes magazine and Succession and in superhero movies and, all these different examples. I watch a movie and like Dumb Money, for example, recently, and there was another, magazine cover, and I always just pause and I kind of, it gives me kind of like that, oh, wow, like, that's Forbes and that's so cool. And you hear it in Jeopardy or you hear it on TV and in music. And I think it's this feeling that people want to connect with our brand and they want to be part of our brand. There's at every live event that we do, we have what's the Forbes store, which is our apparel and different products. There's hats and, backpacks and sweatshirts. And the line for the Forbes branded merchandise, it's out the door. It's a lot of times sold out. I tried to buy a sweatshirt last time at Under 30 Summit and they had sold out of all the ones that I wanted. And so, it's just it's just that, I think that cultural relevancy and currency that really, not every brand has, that we're able to maintain.
Speaking of leading different groups of people and being inspirational, you've taken a leadership role on at Women in Communications. Are there things you learned from that role that help you in your work at Forbes? And maybe then we can get into the other side of that coin. So first, anything you learned from your engagement there that helps you in your work at Forbes?
Absolutely. So I have been part of New York Women in Communications since 2019, and I got involved because I was in the audience of our Matrix Awards, and it was like my first big New York Wiki event I'd been to, and I felt so inspired. After that event, I really wanted to get involved. So I joined a committee, and then they invited me to join the board, and I had so many different positions. And the reason I love New York Wiki and being involved with an organization or that's connected to our industry is the things that both I learn from other incredible leaders and other incredible women that I meet as part of the board, as part of meetings and events that we go to, the connections I make, but also just the cross-industry connection that we have, because New York Women in Communications is not just PR and comms, it's also advertising, it's broadcast, journalism, so many different industries that are unique. And I feel like we learn a lot from one another, which is something I really, truly value.
Are there some leadership ideas that maybe you want to share about how you motivate your team?
Well, first, that goes back to what I said about trust with your team and building trust with your team and relationships with your team. I think it's so important. And there's a bit of togetherness that's really nice when we all come together in person. I think that really working together as much as we can to build and build those togetherness moments in person really, really helps and goes so far. But beyond that, it's just really the communication and empowering everyone on the team to know that there's plenty of opportunities all around, and that there's plenty of things that we can all achieve together. Someone in our leadership organization said that one of the things that's unique about Forbes is that when you're at a live event, for example, everyone picks up an oar and they row, and they all support one another, no matter how senior they are. And it's this mentality that no matter if someone needs help pitching a reporter, I'm there. I'm happy to, I'm not above those things still. And I think there's an ability of like everyone pitches in and we support one another when we need it. Because going back to my earlier point about being flexible, you can't always predict your day. You can't always predict what you're going to be working on. And you need a team that's both ready to go and flexible and able to work with one another. That's really, really critical.
Yeah, interesting. And as we wrap up, obviously 2024 is an election year, and there's a lot of intensity around that. As a communicator, is that something that you feel it makes sense for your organization to adjust to separate? And I'm not talking about endorsing candidates, et cetera. It's more because of what the media environment is that's out there. Do you have to do things a little differently?
It's a good question. I mean, from an editorial perspective, we have reporters who cover the business of politics. They cover the wealth of various individuals, which can sometimes also present, things from a PR perspective where, we might be called out for things. So we do have to sometimes adjust our strategy in terms of being ready to respond and really stand by our editorial products and our editorial team. Our journalists work so hard on their reporting and their investigations and what goes into it. But I do think you're right. Like there's so much going on that's going to affect our entire industry this year. It's going to be a very heated year, I think, around the world. I think the Edelman Trust Barometer also said something like there's 60 plus elections taking place globally,
Right.
and half of the world's population is now able to vote. And that's, it's not just here in the US. I think that's also important to remember that this is something that's taking place globally, and it's going to be a very, interesting year for everyone. And we all have to, again, just be aware of our environment and where our brand sits within it, and just continue to work, for Forbes, at least, like our great editorial team, they're going to continue to do really great work. And I think our team will continue to just encourage, that great work, and continue to promote their great work, and continue to just keep our eyes focused on ensuring that, that the facts matter, and that the facts are presented.
Excellent. Well, you've clearly presented some really interesting facts and approaches. Congratulations to the multiple contributions you're making to the public relations community. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me again. This was so fun. So great.